the wiper arms off with a 13mm socket. Remove the nut, set that aside. And to release the arms, which a lot of times are stuck, you can just wiggle it back and forth, press it up and down, and it should break free eventually from the wiper transmission. Okay, with the hood closed, sometimes it's better because you have more leverage. You can move the wiper arm around. There we go. Let's disconnect the washer hose. Just pulls off of here. Take the wiper arm and set it aside, and then we'll do the same to the driver's side. Phillips head screw right in the middle of the cowl. That holds it down. Go ahead and remove that. You don't have to, but I'm going to take this weather stripping to seal off just so I can see the little screws better that hold this cowl down. You only have to remove the driver's side cowl, so I'll go ahead and take these screws out that hold it down with a Phillips head screwdriver. Take it, pull it straight up. Just have to get it past the stud there. There it goes. I'm just going to set it to the side. Let's unplug the connection for the wiper motor. There's a little tab underneath that you have to press on, and I'll show you that in a second. I'm using a little pocket screwdriver to help press on it. Once it's unhooked, go ahead and pull out. So this is it. Kind of hooks into a little slot, and what I was doing is I was pressing down on it to release it and pulling out at the same time. Set this aside. A few 10mm bolts hold the wiper transmission in. This one might be a little tricky to reach. There's one. Another one right here. Another one right on the motor. One last one over here. Push it towards the passenger side. Then lift it up through this opening. Give it a little twist. And out it comes. Watch out for your windshield, you don't want to break the glass. I have the old wiper transmission with the motor here. I have the new one over here, and as you can see, I position them so they're as similarly lined up as possible. It might not be perfect right off the bat. We can always make adjustments later on, but it's important to have it as lined up as you can at the beginning. Otherwise, you'll have to make a lot of adjustments once it's in the car. And it's important to have it lined up because otherwise, even though you line up your wipers on the transmission itself, if the transmission is offset, then your wipers will be offset and they'll start and stop at random points on the windshield. Having said that, now that they're both as close as possible to each other in their positioning, I'm going to unbolt these two 10mm bolts. That'll remove the motor off of this linkage here, off of this rod on the wiper transmission. And now, once that's freed up, you can spin it around a little bit and remove this 13mm nut. That'll remove the shaft of the motor off of the regulator. It's best to do this with an impact, or you might have to break it free prior to unbolting it, but usually these are kind of tight, especially if you go to do it by hand. And now, this should want to break free from here. If it doesn't, we'll just give it a slight tap with a hammer. There we go. Try not to hit the threads. And now we will transfer this over to the new one. Again, try to line it up as close as possible as you can. So I'm going to do that by installing the nut, but I'm not going to thread it on all the way. I'm going to leave it loose. That way the shaft of the motor can actually pivot on this, and I'm going to be able to line up this arm the way that it needs to be after these bolts are in. So it's important also that your motor doesn't spin. In my case, it didn't, so most likely I will have it 100% lined up. But if you accidentally spin the shaft of your motor, then the motor is also offset, so then you have that to calibrate as well afterwards. So the less things get moved during the installation process, the easier it's going to be. So now I'm just trying to move this wiper transmission so I can line up these two bolts. Okay, that one's started, which means this one should also line up. Yep. All right, let's give these a quick snug. And I know this nut here is still loose, but I will fix that in a minute. Oops, wrong socket. Okay, so those are tight. Now we can come back over here, make sure that this is as lined up as possible, kind of like that. And I will take my 13mm socket, and if your socket doesn't fit in here, just use a wrench. Just give it a quick snug. And that should be all set and ready to install in the vehicle. And like I said, we can always make adjustments later if it doesn't line up properly. Let's reinstall the wiper transmission with the motor. I'm going to slide it into the cowl towards the passenger side. Watch your hands on this because this can be kind of sharp. Slide it back over to the driver's side and just make sure that everything lines up. All right, so I got it lined up. I'm going to get my mounting bolts. We'll start those in. I'm going to start with this one in the middle here by the motor just because it's the easiest one to start. Once this one's on, it'll kind of hold everything in place and I can pivot the whole assembly around this one bolt. So we'll go over to the driver's side now, put this one in over here, and the more bolts you start in, the more it's going to line up for the other ones. This one has to tilt up like this. And last one on the passenger side. Let's snug these up. Oopsies. And last one. Plug it in and we will give it a test. What I mean by that is you can see these splines here. If you look close, once I engage the wiper motor and activate it, you should not see these splines dip down at all before they go up. If you do, that means if you put your wiper arms on, the transmission isn't lined up and it actually wants to dip down before, which means your wipers are going to hit the cowl and then go up, and they won't go up all the way because of that. Sometimes they can even get jammed into the cowl, depends on how far it wants to go down. So it's important to do this check before you go further. So let's turn the key on and we'll give the wipers a try. Okay, let's try one more time. Okay, so I actually do notice a very slight dip down right at the beginning. So the way to fix that is unfortunately to take it back out and just adjust how the motor is bolted up to the transmission over here where the shaft goes through. It's probably just a little bit offset, so let's say it has to be like this, it's really like this. I mean, if you don't want to fix it, that's up to you, but if you want your wipers to work 100% perfectly, I would suggest fixing it. So pull this back out, adjust it, and then try it again, and hopefully it works out. Let's put the cowl back, line it up, make sure this washer hose doesn't get pinched. Line it back down. It's supposed to have a little clip here on the corner. If yours does, just bonk it down a little bit, make sure it latches in. Mine's broken, so I'm not going to worry about it. I only had 2 on this side. There should be 3, but whatever you have, just put it back. Make sure it's nice and secure. Don't forget about this one up in the middle here. Let's put back the wiper arms. Make sure you remember which side is which. The passenger side had the swoop here that is a more severe curve than the driver's side. You'll see the driver's side is more flat. Either way, reattach the wiper arm to the motor here, to the transmission, but make sure you don't pinch the hose. We'll attach that in a second. Press it down and just position it. I have marks here from where the dirt was, where the wiper blade sat, but just position it so that it is somewhat lined up with the windshield. You don't want it to be completely off. And then let's get the 13mm mounting nut. Get this mounting nut on. Give it a quick snug. Hold the wiper arm at the same time so you can make sure it's nice and tight. Okay, don't go crazy tight on this. Let's go ahead and plug in the washer hose here. Try to hold this little fitting here, because a lot of times if you press on them, they will break. They're very fragile. There you go. At this point, let's do the driver's side, and we'll give them one final test. Okay, let's give them a test. I put some glass cleaner on the windshield just to lubricate it, and everything works just fine. And like I said, you didn't have to, but it did make things easier. And if you did take this out, go ahead and put this back. Just press it onto this metal lip here. Go across, make sure it's pressed down. This just prevents water from dripping inside your engine bay from the cowl. At this point, you can close the hood, and you are all set.